Hey everybody, happy Friday. I'm Kylie and you are back with Kylie Nichols. Today I have a fun episode in store. I'm really excited to share tips and tricks on one of my favorite parts of the business. Many of you have followed me on Instagram and on Facebook for a long time, and social media is really one of the ways that I got more well known as a blogger, as an influencer, and really was able to expand my reach. And then also a way that we really grew our business in the beginning. It was kind of like during the Instagram heyday of businesses starting and getting a following and things. So I feel like social media is something that I've learned quite a bit about, and I'm not so bad at it. I enjoy it. And so today I wanted to focus on some tips and tricks and things that I've learned about creating social media. So today's podcast, we're going to be talking about social media tips for the creator. I also want to have an episode coming up soon where we talk about social media tips for the user. How do we use social media? I have a lot of opinions about that too. But today we're going to dive in on tips for creating content on social media, how to look at social media and all that. So, if you've been around as long as I have in kind of the social media and business world, I started blogging back in 2012, and Instagram had just barely kind of started to catch hold. And back then it was a cool way to filter your photos is what I was so excited about, the really cool Instagram filter. But before Instagram, it was Facebook, and Facebook came out when I was in college. So I really started using it as probably a junior or a senior in college. So I have had these years watching the social media change in how we use it, change in what we put out there. Obviously, since Instagram, there's also been Snapchat. There's also TikTok, of course. Pinterest is even a little bit of a social media. So Twitter. Yes, I forgot Twitter. That's the last one. Twitter I don't use because it was before my time, I feel like. So I know people love it, but that's really, speaks to one of my points, which we'll get to, is just that you don't have to be part of and using all social media avenues. They all kind of have a purpose, and you can use them if they work for you and what you do, but you don't have to be a part of all of them in order to be successful. So, when I think about how to dive into talking about social media, first thing that comes to mind is if you are new to using it, which sounds silly, but sometimes you're new to using it as a business owner or as a creator. Maybe you've used it quite a bit as a consumer, but maybe you haven't really started to create or put your own content out there. And so when I talk to people, they say, I don't even know where to start. What's important? And there are so many experts out there. So I will definitely say that there's an amazing amount of resources where there are actual Instagram accounts which teach you how to be relevant on Instagram right now. Highly recommend following as many of those as you can and using their tips and tricks. But one thing that I definitely always start with as I talk to somebody about them starting a business or starting something creative is that before you even name your business or name your blog or name your podcast, you need to go check for social media handles. So social media handles are now what used to be websites. You still need the website. You need the URL as well, but you also are going to need your social media handles. So you need to go grab those as fast as you can. I don't know if for social media it's the same way. I know like if you try to look up a URL and see if it's available and you don't buy it right away and you go back later, usually somebody has snatched it and now you have to pay a lot more for it. There's bots that follow that. But for social media, I don't think that's the case, but definitely if you think it's open and you want it, then you should grab it. And there, it seems sometimes like, how could there possibly be more handles available? But there are. You can be creative. Just don't be too creative. It's so important that it's really easy to remember, really easy to spell, more like intuitive, as to, how your handle relates to your business name. So those are just kind of like, you must do that. You must have those things. I'm always really confused whenever I see a business that the social media handle is like, has some dots in it or some dashes or like, I think it's good to have like shop at the end is totally fine. But if it's just like abbreviations, there's ways to make it really complicated, and that's not going to do you any favors. So start there. And as I was thinking about that, social media is so important for businesses, for creatives, for podcasts, because it is kind of like the new website. So things will continue to evolve, and it's been this way for a few years, but you need to have a social media presence, like an Instagram presence. And it doesn't mean you need to be, getting millions of followers there. It doesn't mean you need to be posting multiple times a day, but you need to have content on there that helps the follower or the viewer understand who you are as a business or who you are as a podcaster. It's just kind of like the fastest thing to check. I know business cards have kind of gone away, and in my experience recently, it's been kind of like, oh, let's follow each other on Instagram. So Instagram is really your new snapshot for how people can understand you as a creator. So you have to have one, and you still have to have a website. So I'm sorry, you have to do both, but luckily, all of those things there's a lot of really easy free tools. So that leads me to my next point about tools and about content that you create. You need to learn about the tools that can help you create. You don't have to use anything that's really expensive. Canva is an awesome tool for creating graphics and quotes and all the things you could need for social media, even like Facebook headers and Twitter headers, like everything sized perfectly, very easy to use. So use Canva. Make sure you have a cell phone that takes good photos. We should all have that by now, but like invest in it. If you don't have the iPhone 12, you probably should go for the 11, the 12, and more. And then practice creating some good quality images. Things have changed over the last few years where it's not so much the aesthetic of your feed that matters. It's more about content that's engaging and entertaining. But the creative in me still wants to have something that looks beautiful and is interesting. So figuring out what that looks like for you and for your brand, for whatever you sell or talk about, what kind of photos do you need to kind of collect content for? Is it pictures of you? Is it pictures of your product? Is it flat lays? Is it inspiration photos from your mood boards? Things like that. So if you look back in my Instagram feed, you will see so many not great photos. And even now, there are people who make such more amazing photos than I do. But there's kind of a certain level of lighting and color and things like that I've learned through trial and error. The next thing, if you're thinking about your content, you're thinking about what to post on social media, something that I've always said is that you need to be thinking about what kind of value you're providing to somebody who's following you. So hopefully you're posting things that are beautiful or funny or entertaining or interesting or educational, but all of those things provide value, like the values I just said. And the things that fall flat and the things people don't care about are things that are really self-absorbed and are really just like, well, that's nice. How does that help me? So as I've tried to create content or create my brands over the years, it's like, okay, how can I give tips? How can I give trips? What do I know that I can pour into my social media so that they are receiving something from it that's not just surface level. Surface level things are good, but having a mix in there of like why they follow you. Like I said, entertainment is really important right now. People just really want to be entertained, hence Snapchat and Reels and videos being so important. But I think there's ways to be entertaining no matter how, if you take pictures or video or those things. So it's kind of keeping that in mind. That really kind of is speaking to having a strategy. So knowing what you're selling, what you're talking about, what value you provide, and then what does it look like to do that? Those are kind of things we've discussed. But then there will come a time where it does need to be more strategic and planned out. So we're talking about tools. There's also scheduling tools for social media that make it much less overwhelming, easier to sit down and plan out social media for the week. I know our social media manager here at Nickel & Suede spends Mondays with a time blocked out to really create content for the whole week. Because the hard thing about social media is that it never stops, it never sleeps. Actually, when people are supposed to be sleeping, that's when they're on it. And so how do you stay in front of people constantly can get exhausting. So having a plan with a schedule and scheduling tools can really help with some of that overwhelm that you might get when you're trying to get a handle on it. So I think that really leads to the importance of consistency in social media. The last few years, it's been a lot of talk about the algorithm and how to stay in front of people, how to have your followers see you, how to gain new followers. And a lot of that comes back to the same basic principle in everything, is that you just need to be consistent with what you do. So you can't just post on Facebook or on Instagram or anywhere like every other day or every third day, or like 2 one day and then like another one later in the week. You just won't gain any traction because you're not getting better because it's inconsistent, and you're not training the people that you want to follow you, that you're there to pay attention to you. It's just not quite enough effort. So the scheduling thing can really help you with being consistent. And you might have to try a lot of new things. That's something else that's really important for social media. You may have to try different times of the day that you post. You may have to try different content for different channels. So for me, I found when I was blogging quite a bit more, style blogging, that certain pictures would do well on Instagram and other pictures would do well on Facebook. What really mattered actually was the caption. So on Instagram, lots of times it was being a little more interesting and not calling out the details of like specific clothes or shoes or sunglasses or a sale. No one really wanted to be sold to on Instagram, but on Facebook, they were totally used to it. And so it was really actually important to say, this fits this way, it's this price, click the link below. And that was very clear about what to do. And so I wouldn't say that it's exactly that same way right now, but that's just an example of paying attention to why those followers are on each of the platforms that you're participating in. So we talked about not being on every platform and that that's okay. And how to choose which platform you're on really depends on who you want to attract as a follower. So for myself, for Nicole and Suede, we spend a lot of time on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, a little bit, creating reels and creating some of this other content. But a lot of our current customers and the customers we want spend a lot of time on Instagram. So that's a good place for us to make sure we have all our ducks in a row. Like I said, we don't really participate in Twitter because that just doesn't fit with our business goals. So that's something to consider. Okay, other tips. I feel like there's so many things I could talk about. I'm just going to bounce off the walls all over the place. So bear with me, and hopefully a few of these things will stick. But I mentioned the algorithm. I feel like that's the main question everybody's asking is like, how do I grow? How do I be actually shown to my audience? No one even sees my stuff. And I mean, truth be told, I'm dealing with all these same things myself right now. I'm not pouring tons of time and strategy into my own social media. And so I'm also not growing right now. I'm also feeling like, the algorithm. But what I know some of the answers, it's just really employing them that sometimes is the hard thing to do. So right now, entertainment is critical. Instagram just announced that they're no longer a photo sharing platform. They're now going to start really leaning heavy into video, which is great if you like to create video. I do not like to create video. Obviously I do for this podcast, for YouTube. I like to create some things. So for me, I like to do lives. Lives still count as video, so that works for me. And at some point, I'm going to dive into what reels would look like for me, what is that genre that works for me, and then how do I take the time to do that? But video just makes a lot of sense. So you need to be creating reels, you need to be creating TikToks in order to be shown in front of people. But the other thing you can do is really just try and hold their attention. So you can hold their attention by having slides, and especially if those slides are like text that you have them read as they slide along, and that can keep them on your account for longer. So Instagram's really looking to say, is so-and-so entertained by what Kylie's putting out? Are they sitting there looking for more? Are they watching the whole thing? And that matters for showing your account to new followers. Another way to get in front of new followers is to create really shareable content. Now, a lot of the shareable content right now is funny, comedic, totally not my zone of genius either. But you can look at like what you've been sharing, what you've been posting on any of the social media sites, and use your analytics and say, well, of the things that I do post, what do people tend to share? And so that can give you a clue as to what other types of, or how to create more of that same type of content. So like for me, photos of my French bulldog Pepper get shared often, especially if she's in really cute clothes. And it's silly, it's entertaining, but people share that. They also share inspirational quotes that kind of hit the right note. They also share like when I talk about any of the kind of health struggles that my son Rush has gone through, any of the like inspirational business posts that I do where I say like, here's where we started, here's where we are now. So knowing those things about your account and about the content that you create really can help you say, okay, this works, I'm going to make more of it, and kind of zone in on the things that work for you and for the audience that you're trying to build. You can always also use other people's content by reposting things as long as you give proper credit, but sometimes that can help you have shareable content too. Because if it's something you really liked and you felt like sharing, then a repost on your account could help you get more shares too, because that also tells people who you are and things that you enjoy. So one thing that I've had to get comfortable with over the years is being in front of the camera, being in front of on video and those things. And I've had people ask questions like, how much do I have to show up on my account? And I think there's several ways to look at that. I think it's important that you show up at some point, especially as the owner of something, as the brand creator. Even if it's a photography account where I love the photographer and I love their work, I still find myself scrolling and being like, yeah, but which one are they? Like, who are they? And so I think you have to be seen somehow. Now, maybe that means setting up a special photo shoot where you feel comfortable and you get a couple good photos of you, and that's just you reuse that content and you feel comfortable. You don't have to constantly create new things of you. But I think you do have to show up somehow. Now, for my personal account at Kylie Nichols, this is Instagram, but I do think it applies to Facebook and things too. I show up all the time. Like it's me. That's my account. It's my family. It's me. And that's kind of the brand there. But with Nicole and Suede, I don't show up near as much because the focus isn't just about me. I'm a key element of it, the brand story as the owner, but I don't want to show up just as a model or just, every day wearing earrings all the time. The way we've positioned me there is more to be the business owner, the founder, the brand, and so that it's different. Like I show up sometimes, but not all the time. So you don't have to be in front of it all the time, but I do think people want to know who you are. That's so important as you're building a brand, whether it's product based or services. People want to buy from a person. And so they need to be able to see you and know you. Another question that may come to mind is like, you can spend money on social media, you can boost posts, you can spend ad money. And I think it's worth experimenting, especially if you're going to do it yourself. So like I had a lot of success boosting posts and running ads whenever I was blogging and I wanted to talk more about clothes that were on sale or things that were going to be revenue driving links for me, if that makes sense. So like the more people it showed to, the more I would sell. So of course, if it's a really well-performing photo, I'm going to boost that and try to get it in front of more people. I played that game and it worked. And I would find pictures it didn't work on and then other ones that it really worked well on. It's the same thing for Nicole and Suede. We'll put together specific ads for social media, but we try lots of different things. And then once we see some things start to work, that's what we put the money toward. So I think just like a lot of things, it comes down to trial and error and being willing to mix it up. I think it's a really fortunate time to be using social media ads because the Facebook bots are getting really, really smart. I don't know if you've noticed, but really smart about selling things to you that are relevant to you. So if you're selling something, you can use that to your advantage by targeting and letting Facebook target all the people who might love your product. It always comes back to bite me whenever I get those ads targeted to me and then I'm like randomly spending money buying things from Facebook. But I think it's gotten so smart, and it definitely is worth trying and using. I wouldn't go to an ad agency or a digital ad marketing company to run all of that for you until you kind of have your own idea. You've tried things yourself, because as soon as you pass it off to a digital marketing company, like, bless their hearts, there's so many good ones, love them. You kind of turn over everything to them, and then there's a potential that you don't understand enough to know the return you're getting from them. So learning it yourself, learning as much as you can, and taking it as far as you can take it is always my recommendation, and then bring in some professional help once you are educated about it. One thing we haven't talked about is stories. Stories, man, those overwhelmed me when stories came out, and I feel like that was like 100 years ago for so many people. But stories took me out of my comfort zone, and I had to figure it out. Now I really enjoy it. But stories are not for gaining new followers. They're really for continuing to engage your current following and help them know who you are and follow along, like, the behind the scenes of your life. So it's really good. It's just your account's not going to grow if you only share really are only sharing to stories. As I kind of wrap up these tips, and as I'm thinking about, there's so many things you can do, and you can make it a full-time job. I mean, I feel like TikTok is a full-time job for the people who really are successful at it. But I think that it still always comes back to something that's so important to me, which is authenticity, and really creating content that you love, that means something to you, that's coming from the heart and from your values. And if that's shining through your content, whether it's quotes, whether it's slides, whether it's stories, whether it's a video, or just a beautiful image, then that will resonate with the right people and attract them, keep them. And it's so important to have an audience that really knows you and understands you and feels like they relate to you. And having a smaller audience like that is so much better than having an enormous audience of people who don't hardly even know who you are and don't have any loyalty or connection. So social media is still all about being social and really interacting and having relationships. And even though we're navigating constant changes, I think that it always still comes back to that. So I hope that these tips helped you as you make your plans and your goals for your social media accounts, whether they're just starting or you're trying to get out of a slump. It can be a tremendous way to build your business and your brand. And it's essential to figure out a strategy that works for you. So hopefully these tips helped. Make sure to comment on YouTube or on Instagram and let us know which ones resonated with you. And as always, if you can leave a review, that really will help other people find us and follow and hear these same tips and tricks. So thanks so much. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening today to With Kylie Nichols. I hope that today you felt empowered to take one more step towards living the best version of you. Tune in next week for another episode, and in the meantime, you can find us elsewhere on the internet. You can find me on Instagram at Kylie Nichols and at Nickel and Suede. You can also find us at nickelandswade.com. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.